right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's program, Living Well Together with Follicular Lymphoma, real talk from patients and partners. The focus for today is living well with FL, navigating the healthcare system, staying informed and connected in the system, and so much more. And we've got an incredible panel. First, an introduction. Hello, my name is Stephanie Trong. I'm the founder of The Patient Story, and more importantly, had my own blood cancer diagnosis, also non-Hodgkin lymphoma, but a different subtype, diffuse large B cell. And back then, when I was getting my 600 plus hours of chemotherapy, so much fun, I felt very isolated, confused, and I really wanted to hear from real people. In other words, experts who are not already being highlighted. And to me, that would be other patients, care partners. And so that's when the idea came up to help others navigate life at and after diagnosis, which is what the patient story aims to do. Here, we try to build community through in-depth patient stories, educational programs, and discussions to amplify your voices, the voices of patients and caregivers and partners like the ones today. And we also want to thank, before we get into everything, our great partners, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society and the Living with Follicular Lymphoma support group on Facebook. So the LLS provides free resources, one of which is one-on-one support through their information resource specialists who are available to answer your questions, again, one-on-one and free. The LLS also has a community section. It's a forum to chat with others living with follicular lymphoma. The Facebook group, Living with Follicular Lymphoma, also provides another community where you can in real time chat with so many people, thousands of people from around the world living with FL. It is the largest FL dedicated Facebook group online. We'd like to thank GenMap for its support as our sponsor. Its support allows us to continue hosting these sorts of discussions and programs, and all free for our community. I want to stress that The Patient Story retains full editorial control. And while we hope that this is helpful, remember, as always, that this is not a substitute for any sort of medical advice. Please consult with your own team as you're making your decisions. And last thing, I promise before we get to the heart of today, we always want to hear from you. We know it takes a lot to make it here and we want to do better. So a survey is going to pop up at the end of this discussion. We truly want to hear what you have to say. Please let us know what we could do better, what you want more of, and what did work for you. And that will again come on after this program ends. All right, now to the fun part, to the discussion. Joining me today are follicular lymphoma patients and their care partners. Really looking forward to this discussion, all the perspectives that are going to be coming to the table here. We've got Nikki and Craig joining from Perth, West Australia, Haley and Carl from St. Louis, Missouri, and Melissa and Andrew from Clear Spring, Maryland. I'm joining from just outside San Francisco. So we're covering a lot of space, everyone. I really want to thank you for making this happen today and for taking part.
So Nikki, and my name is Nikki. This is my husband, Craig. I was diagnosed with follicular lymphoma 11 years ago now. I was 32 years old. I had my kids were only very young, 1 and 4, and they're all just about growing up now. And I'm also just graduated university and am now a clinical nutritionist. And my passion is supporting cancer patients through their nutrition and lifestyle. So,
Yep, so my name's Craig and I'm Nikki's husband. We've been together pretty much forever.
We're trying to work that out. 28 years, I think.
Long time. Obviously, I'm Nikki's sort of caregiver, but you know, it's probably a lot more than that.
We're each other's caregiver.
Yeah. And yeah, I just do my thing. I'm a dad and I work and I just try and sort of keep everything rolling, really.
Hi, I am Melissa. I was diagnosed with follicular lymphoma at the end of 2023. We were together 3 years. This is Andrew, by the way. And we were together for 3 years. We actually lived in the same household for, I guess, 1 year, maybe a little over 1 year at that time. If there's something that, I'm also a nurse, so that put a different spin on everything that kind of went on.
My name's Andrew, or Andy. Melissa and I have been together since August of 2021, and she was diagnosed with lymphoma in November or December of 2023, and started getting treatment in January of 2024. But we've been living together since September of 2022 or 2022, I think.
Yeah.
And so it's been a challenge with her. She seeks treatment up in New York City, which is about probably a good 4 or 5 hour commute to get there from where we are. But she gets really good care where she goes, and right now I think knock on wood, she's doing well.
And Haley and Carl are also joining us. Thank you so much for being here as well. And Haley, we just did your story. It's done incredibly well in terms of impact, tens of thousands of people already in just a couple of weeks. So I want to say thank you for that. And speaking of nurse, that's another commonality. So if you could introduce yourselves, that'd be great.
So I'm Haley. I am 31. I got diagnosed with follicular 3B lymphoma in late October, just last year. So about 5-6 months ago now, and it had transformed to diffuse B cell already when we found it. So we started treatment pretty quick in November. But yeah, like you said, I'm a nurse also. Pretty outgoing and work in the emergency room. So that's where I got my diagnosis, was actually at my work.
I'm Carl. I'm Haley's boyfriend. We've been together coming up on 2 years now, about 1.5 years when she was diagnosed. Luckily, we already lived together when that happened. And so I do have 2 kids. So my role in this has just been to support her and try to stay healthy and stay present. I'm lucky that I work remote, so I've been able to attend most every appointment and be there for her as best I can. Just try to hold everything together. But she's done great, and we're happy to see the other side of this.
Yeah, wow. I know it's like so recent for you. And I know, Haley, you talked about, for instance, like the wig and everything. And I was diagnosed when I was 31, and I was married in a wig. And I'd never imagined that, right? Like, it's just life throws you these things, and we do the best we can, I think, as many of you have said. So let's kick off first with sort of the first part of when you found out about all this, right? We know that for follicular lymphoma, many people don't feel any symptoms. Some feel subtle symptoms. And so there's a bit of a range there. But a lot of people get curious about this part of the story too. So how did this lead to a diagnosis? Nikki, starting with you, you said you were diagnosed at 32. I was 31. We both mentioned fatigue, which, by the way, isn't just tired people, right? It's something beyond that. But you had also just had your son. So feeling that is probably, it's like that's comes with that, doesn't it? And so what moved you to actually become really concerned?
Well, it was funny. I didn't really notice any signs or symptoms because, as you said, I just had a baby and I was working, and yeah, I had had a toddler as well. So being tired and fatigued is normal. what I thought. So I was actually at the time I used to be a mortgage broker, and I was at work at the time, and one of my colleagues was sitting next to me, and she always thought she had any kind of illness that came up, a bit of a hypochondriac. So she's mentioned to me that she always checks her neck for lumps, because in her head, if you have a lump on your neck, it meant that you had cancer. And I sort of laughed it off, and I thought, oh, as you do, you kind of feel your neck. And then I realised that my neck was like a corn cob. I had lots and lots of lumps. It was very lumpy. And I thought, oh, that's a little bit, I didn't worry too much, but went to the GP, and he was like, oh, okay, we'll do a blood test and we'll see. and never heard back. And so I went back maybe a month later and told him I still had the lumps there, and that's when he would thought, oh, okay, we better do some more testing. But it took a good 2 to 3 months for me to get my actual diagnosis. There's a lot of back and forwards going to different doctors and getting tests done, fine needle aspiration. So that was a little traumatic at the time.
Haley, you have shared that you felt pressure in your neck, didn't feel like a typical sore throat, but you were otherwise feeling healthy. So, what pushed you to listen more to your body and push you to seek medical help?
So it originally started with just a lump over my clavicle, and it was really deep set. It didn't feel like a lymph node. It almost felt like a pulled muscle. So that was there. It wasn't bothering me all day. It wasn't even really every day. It was kind of in certain positions. When I would raise my arms above my head, I would feel the pressure. Now looking back, I know exactly what that was. Every time I lifted up, it would push the mass. It had deviated my trachea. But besides for those nodules, my only other symptom was a little bit of wheezing, and I didn't really think of it at the time. It wasn't alarming enough or often enough to spark concern. But when I would sit kind of slouched back on the couch, when I would breathe out a few times, I kind of felt a wheeze, and I was like, I just need to change my position. Like, that's no big deal. But then I found out I had a big chest mass right in the middle, and that's never happened since then. So now I know that's what that was.
And just as a quick follow up, when you got seen and you voiced your concern, did you get any sort of feedback like, "Oh, it's nothing"? Only asking because, especially as a young woman, sometimes we hear stories about that.
So that morning, I called an ENT because I knew that it wasn't something normal at that point. That it came overnight. I was like, I would like to get a scan, and the ENT said, "I'll see you basically in 6 months." And I was like, "Well, it came overnight, so in 6 months, I don't think I'll be here." So, when I went to the primary care doctor, she was pushing on my thyroid, having me swallow. She wasn't quick to say, let's do a scan. I had to push for that for sure. She was thinking more thyroid and said, let's do an x-ray. So originally, the only thing that we had was the x-ray, which was that day. So they called me that night with the x-ray results showing widening of my mediastinum. And I was shocked by that because I was only under the impression that I might have some swollen nodules. I really didn't understand why she was even x-raying my chest. So
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad you did, push for what you needed. Melissa, I saw you nodding during that time too. And I know both of you also working in the healthcare profession. And as nurses, I can only imagine all that you know when it comes to this. Did that also show up for you in terms of self-advocacy and trying to figure out the diagnosis? And also zooming out a little, also, did you have any sort of red flags for symptoms that you experienced?
I commonly too had lymph nodes in my neck. I had gone to primary care, and they, she sent me. They thought also it was my thyroid, and did some ultrasounds. Really didn't see anything, and then did a CAT scan. The CAT scan came back possible lymphoproliferative disease. And then I went to see an ENT doctor at, pretty big center. And he said it was just inflammation. He didn't know really what it was. Told me to get another ultrasound of my thyroid, and then said, I'll see you in 6 months. And I said, can we have maybe a biopsy? Can we biopsy it? And he said, no, I don't think it's warranted. So I kind of went on for another 2 years, until I got another CT scan. So yeah.
Yeah, and we've heard like sometimes it does take, right, especially when there's not an even more pressing sort of symptom to flag something. And so thank you for sharing that. We are going to get to Craig, Carl, and Andrew in a second for a deeper conversation. But before we do that, I was thinking of sort of a quick exercise. because we know that there are two very different perspectives when we enter a diagnosis, right? It's the person who's diagnosed, and then the care partner, for sure, the main care partner. And so, if we could sort of like as a lightning round, I'm just curious if we could ask each care partner first, what do you think your partner was thinking and feeling, in terms of how to handle the diagnosis?
Well, it was obviously, excuse me, a big shock for both of us. Um, you just don't. She's been always very healthy and vibrant and energetic, and so you're kind of thrown back by it, and it's a little. Oh, I think it's a little hard to grasp the meaning. The severity of it, and you don't really know because you don't have a lot of answers in the beginning. So I think we both, Melissa knew that she needed to get more answers, and she didn't want to. She wanted to go to a facility where I think she would probably have the best chance of getting the best treatment. And being a nurse, I think you're gonna, you have that, that she wants to research and look up symptoms and which is good, because she's educated in that respect, and I'm not in that field really, so.
Thank you so much, Andrew. Melissa, what I heard was one part of there where it was, of course, there was fear, but also you being someone who's in the field of healthcare, you know a lot, which is good, but also it brought some anxiety. So when you heard him describe your reaction, was that pretty on, or is there anything else you'd like to add about what you were feeling?
Um, yeah, I think that was pretty on. It was pretty on. Yeah, I was of course I went down every bad road that there was. So
And then, if you could sort of list a couple of words for Andrew and how you think he was at diagnosis and how he was moving forward into this new relationship, what would that be? How would you describe that?
I think he was lost. I think he was terrified. Really, I was terrified, and I think he just took one day at a time. Where I took 5 years in advance, and he took one day at a time. So um, better probably for him. Yeah.
And Andrew, did she nail that, or were there other things that you were feeling?
No, I think she nailed it. I'm sure I was feeling anxious about it and not really knowing what to do. Um, but it's a different role than if you have, if you're diagnosed with cancer. I think your outlook about your future changes dramatically overnight. That's a hard thing to deal with, and that's a hard thing for somebody who is with you to, or your person who loves you to grasp too right away. I think it takes a little time to absorb those things, and uh, but I think she did a good job of describing that. Yeah, absolutely.
Great, thank you both. We'll move the exercise to Nikki and Craig, which I know happened some years ago, but as best you can remember, um, if you could, Craig, talk about Nikki and her reaction and how she was during that time as you guys were trying to figure it out. What descriptive words would you use there?
Yeah, so the descriptive words I'd use was definitely uncertainty, fear, being lost, not knowing, what tomorrow's going to be, and the information, the data, sort of 10 years ago was a lot different to what it is now. So probably the uncertainty is probably the big one that I'd go with. Very, very difficult. I don't remember many days of my life. I remember my wedding day, but I do remember February 13th. and the phone and the conversation. Yeah, tough. Certainly a tough day.
Thank you. Nikki, was there anything that Craig didn't know at the time, or did he pretty much capture all of that for you?
Um, it was pretty bang on. I just remember because it was a phone call because we live a little out of Perth and the doctor was a fair way away, so they called me and gave me the news. So I heard it on the phone, and he was sort of next to me, and I said, "Is it cancer?" Because I didn't know what lymphoma was. I knew nothing. I there wasn't even really that much information. But I remember the doctor said to me, "Google indolent." And so Craig went off. He went off straight away and Googled indolent, and then he came running back in and he said, "Don't go on Google and don't Google anything." So I was banned from Googling, but I don't know what he read. But it was a very shocking moment. I think we were just very stunned because I didn't expect to hear that. So yeah, it's like a punch in the face, I think. Yeah.
And Nick, I think when we talked also, you'd mentioned, the emotional response too, and the sort of like, Craig felt something first, then when he was able to, kind of collect everything and move forward, then you got the chance to sort of, let that go. Can you describe that?
Yeah, I remember he sort of came back and that he must have read something that scared him. And so he was the one that broke down first. And so I was like, "It's going to be all okay, love." And so we called his mum to come over because she's got breast cancer. So, and we're very close. So he's right, get mum down. And then when she got there, that's when it kind of hit me and I broke down. And so yeah, we kind of took turns in supporting each other, and then then as we started to get into it, then
Yeah.
the information sort of came to light. But I think it's just that initial shock, and then also particularly when after I had my bone marrow aspiration, we found out that it was stage 4, and hearing the word stage 4 for any cancer in our mind was that's the worst it can be. But I think for FL it's a bit different, which we didn't know at the time. So there's definitely a lot more information out there about FL than there were 11 years ago.
I mean, I guess if I could add something here, we went through the process of before the diagnosis, and we went to numerous doctor's appointments and fine needle aspirations and
Neck dissection.
so sort of all of those things I went through. I kept saying to Nikki, "You got nothing to worry about. It's going to be fine. This is just a process they go through. This is what they do just to rule stuff out." And then when we actually got the diagnosis, I felt awful that I was saying these things to her, everything's gonna be all right. It was, I don't know, I don't know how to put it into words, but it was really tough for me that I'd gone through that process with her telling her, "Oh no, everything's gonna be sweet," and then obviously it's not, and it's like a bit of a bomb gets dropped, and well, hang on a second.
Nikki, how is it hearing him describe that piece of it? Have you talked about that before?
No, not really. Yeah, actually, we haven't really spoken in depth about how we felt at the time of diagnosis. So, yeah, it's good to talk about it and get it out in the open. But I don't think you should have any guilt about it. It's not it's not anything that we could control. I just think it's sort of it's and you would all understand this when you get a diagnosis like this, your whole mindset is starting to change. Things that mattered before just don't matter anymore. And now I'm realizing what a blessing that is, because it's really opened my eyes to take notice of things around me and really just make the most of every moment with our kids and watching them grow. And we just don't miss a moment anymore, and I'm really grateful for that.
Wonderful. Well, thank you both for sharing all of that. I know it's a lot to remember back to 11 years ago. Yeah, so thank you. And And Haley and Carl, I'm so interested in knowing if any of that resonated with either of you, but would love to, yeah, ask, you know, Carl, what do you remember Haley sort of feeling and thinking in her reaction in that time of the diagnosis?
Yeah, so I was in the ER room when the doctor came in and gave her a diagnosis. I would say shock was definitely the number one emotion, probably for both of us. But one because she was so young and healthy. I mean, we went to the gym quite a bit and we ate pretty good and we were active people. And yeah, it was just shock in the beginning, and then quickly turned to fear, I would say. So fear of the unknown, all the uncertainty that Craig was talking about, all those same emotions. She was quick to harness all that and kind of bring it back and just hit everything head on. But yeah, definitely shock and fear in the beginning.
Thank you. Haley, was there anything else that was going on for you? I mean, it's really not that long ago, right? Yeah. So what was Carl pretty right on with that? Was there anything else that you kind of were feeling that he doesn't like wasn't able to see maybe?
Shock is definitely the first word. I was pretty much in disbelief that it could be cancer, and I also didn't quite know what lymphoma was. I didn't know when they said the word that meant cancer. I was like, is this something terminal? Is this something that can be treated? And now I know there's over 180 forms of non-Hodgkin's, so I just didn't really know what to think or what to expect. I asked my doctor, I mean, we're basically friends there. We're so close. I was like, am I going to die? And he told me no. So it was helpful, even if he didn't know. At least in that time, I knew it wasn't a death sentence. I was scared. Um, we had only been together a year and a half, Carl and I. So I had like a pit in my stomach, like, oh my gosh, what am I kind of signing him up for? And his kids, like, this isn't expected, but nobody expects that. But he's been really good about, being strong and not making that be a feeling anymore. But I couldn't help but to think, like, we're 30 years old. This isn't what he was probably thinking a year ago whenever we got together, that this is what we're going to buckle up for. But yeah, my last chemo was only a week ago, so it's today. So it's really still new and there's still fear um, kind of percolating in there. But yeah, it's been a lot.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I mean, I remember that was a while ago for me as well. I mean, I think 7 years ago. But a lot coming at you, right? And you're still in it. Haley, how about with Carl? You were in the room together that day, but for that day and the days and a couple weeks after, what did you notice of his reaction and what he was going through?
I feel like he held it together pretty good. I feel like he was very supportive in there, and understanding and listening. Kind of the same, like, we're going to get through it. Um, no matter what happens, it was nice to know that he didn't run away and wasn't like, I don't want to get into this. This seems like a really stressful time. It was more like stood by me and like, we're going to get to the end of it. Whatever that is going to be. With having two younger kids, he kind of like put that to the side, like, it's going to be okay. We're going to get through it all together. Don't worry about it. So that was nice. But it all happened so fast. I got my diagnosis the very next day. I went to an oncologist. The next day, I had surgery. 2 weeks later, I got treatments. I feel like my oncologist was trying to say as minimal amount of words as possible and not really tell me much, just focus on treatment. We'll get there when we get there. We'll talk about all the stuff later. And I was like, that's not good enough. I need to know if I have a future. I just kept thinking, like, am I going to be able to have children? Am I going to get married? Do I tell him, go live your life? Like, don't wait for me, That was definitely a thought many times.
That hit really home for me because that was where I was in my relationship too. And that brings me back to that time. I thought all the same things, by the way, right? Like we imagine this life and then this comes and it wasn't part of the plan, obviously, for anybody. But thank you for sharing that, Haley. I really appreciate it. Carl, Was there anything that you feel Haley didn't see at the time, or did she cover all of it?
No, I think she did a good job. I mean, none of those thoughts obviously ever crossed my mind, but yeah, there was definitely some underlying fear and things that I probably suppressed a little bit just to kind of be there for her. But a lot of the same emotions she was feeling, I was too. I just probably didn't show them quite as much in the beginning.
Have you been able to since then? I know it's only been like half a year. Is that right? Yeah. So, but in this time, have you been able to shift a little bit more into? It sounds like you were like, I was feeling all those things, but in order to support, I didn't really want to access that right away. Have you been able to process it more?
I feel like I have. Yeah, I mean we've been submerged in this for 6 months now. I've definitely had my moments. So
Can you talk about what those moments look like for you, and then we can ask the others as well.
yeah, I guess my first big one was when she went in for her biopsy. That was a tough one to see her go back. I stayed back while her parents went in to kind of see her off. So that was a big one, and we've had a couple together, around the house. Some of the scary times where she's gotten sick during treatment or things like that have been together. But yeah, that was kind of my big one was while she was in surgery for her biopsy.
Okay, thank you. Andrew, how about for you? When was the first time? Were you able to were you able to process it pretty quickly or did it also take some time, or do you remember the first time it really hit you emotionally?
Uh, I think it was when Melissa went up for her first treatments at Sloan Kettering, and she did not feel well at all after her first treatment, so it really worried me. She had to go to the ER afterwards, and I think that's kind of when it really emotionally hit home to me that this is very, very serious, and we don't know what the outcomes is going to be. That it's going to be a fight. It's So I think it was at that time that I realized, this is a serious, serious issue for sure.
Um, Craig, and for you, what was the most challenging part of it, in the role of care partner?
Look, probably the hardest thing was when he was having treatment, just the wasting away of her body and what the drugs were doing to her. She went from a pretty fit, healthy young lady to really skinny, weak. It was tough. You go, you're looking from the outside in, and yeah, just very difficult to see your partner, go through that change. And I'd said to her 1,000 times, "Hey, I'd swap places with you in an instant. I'd take that on." But unfortunately, that's not how it works. But yeah, that was probably the toughest part for me, definitely.
Absolutely. Thank you, Craig. Andrew, Melissa, when we were chatting before the conversation, had mentioned, hey, she's been a nurse for over 30 years, right? And so going from being that to the patient was a hard transition. I think, Melissa, you called yourself a quote bad patient. I think you said that. I'm just curious, Andrew, was that challenging for you? What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was very challenging. Melissa really wanted to do a lot of researching on the phone and on her computer, and I just think that's her nature. And she would say that would help kind of ease her mind. But I felt differently about it. I felt, I tried to accept that as her, that it did, but I felt that it would just make her more anxious. And I wanted her to try to put those things aside and try to still kind of live her life, which I think, that's maybe a little bit of a naive way of looking at it, maybe, but that's the only way, from my perspective, I could really do much because I'm not a doctor or nurse. So I have a limited understanding of the technical aspect of things. But I think in the end, as far as Melissa researching things, it kind of morphed into researching her illness and all the technical things, and it morphed into finding other people who had were in the same situation. So it became a support group for her too, which was a good thing. And I think that continues to this day to be her a good thing for her, because she's really taken that support group uh, uh, that she has, the people that she's made friends with and contacts with, and she's kind of given back to those to people who are going through the same experiences with lymphoma. So I think it's really in the end been a great thing for her, because I think she gets a lot of good. It helps her, I think, heal. I think it helps her heal a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. What you're speaking to, I think I've heard many times over, which is no matter how great the relationship is, there is something to be said about each person's role and that understanding of what it feels like, right? So maybe for the patient, him or herself, and also for the care partner, which is why I'm glad we're having this discussion with all of these perspectives. I do want to move into really quickly. I know Haley, you talked about your treatment a little bit. I know you're 6 months in, but if everyone could share, um, what treatment they've had, and what that looked like. We'll just do a quick sort of quick fire there, and then shift into the treatment decision making conversation. But Haley, what treatment have you had, and what are you looking ahead to?
We started R-CHOP, and then Neulasta, that injection that they put on your belly. So I am doing at-home Neupogen injections right now. I have 10 days of that to boost my white blood count up. And I took my last prednisone 2 days ago. So that's it. I have a scan in 6 weeks, a PET scan in labs. But as far as meds go, I don't have any more.
Thank you for sharing that.
Don't want any more.
I hear you. I hear you. Thank you, Haley. And Melissa, and then Nikki, if you could describe, because I know watch and wait is a big part, and whatever you call it, right? Watch and wait active surveillance is a big part of follicular. So yeah, Melissa, could you describe what you've had in terms of treatment?
So I had a research drug. It was mosunetuzumab. It's a bispecific, which was really a good decision. And I guess we'll get into the decision making, but that's what I had. I had 8 rounds of that.
Great. And how long were you on that after some period of watch and wait, or did you
No,
go?
I was diagnosed officially in December 2023. I started in January 2024 with the mosunetuzumab. Yeah.
That's right. You did mention that. Thank you. And Nikki?
Yeah, I had what I think is quite an unusual treatment, because I actually haven't met anybody else who had the same treatment as me, and I know a lot of FL patients. So they put me straight into this clinical trial. So we didn't really have decisions, but I wasn't educated enough to know what I was, going to get into. But yeah, they suggested I go on this clinical trial at the time, and it was called HotMabthera. So it was basically rituximab coupled with radioactive iodine. So I was injected with the radioactive iodine, and I was basically radioactive, and I was put under house arrest for a couple of weeks. I wasn't allowed within 5 metres of anyone or within 100 metres of children or pregnant women. So that was quite confronting, of course, being away from the kids and the whole family for a couple of weeks. And then so I had that infusion, and then that followed with a year's worth of rituximab, and it worked pretty quickly. The lumps just melted away within, I think it was a month or two, and then 3 months into my treatment, I had a PET scan, and that was clear. That was NED, and I haven't had a scan since because of the radioactive iodine. We're trying to I'm trying to stay away from radiation as much as I can. So yeah, I do have a couple of lumps in my neck that we do monitor, but I haven't needed any treatment since. Fingers crossed I don't need any more. That's the plan. No more treatment. But it did fracture my immune system. So I managed that. But I managed it pretty well. So, yeah.
Good. Awesome. Thank you for that. I'm glad to hear it. That was good background just to understand, if you had these long periods of wait or anything like that. So opening this into a broader discussion about communication with the healthcare team, right? You've got two people in this, patient, care partner. First, there's the treatment decision-making part of it. If, you had that conversation with your doctor, and then also symptom management and reporting what people are feeling. So, I guess first, Haley and Carl, how did you feel you both took on the roles when it came to making decisions about your treatment or about which doctor? Haley, you talked about seeing a specialist. I see a little knowing look. Yeah, I'll just open it up to you guys.
As far as medical treatment decisions, I just know that I'm pretty, what do you think, babe?
I stay in my lane. Yeah, I stay quiet. I just take notes so she doesn't forget what the doctors say.
That's actually
Yeah.
the taking notes part, right? Like there's a lot coming at you. Yeah.
It's funny that talking about Melissa like researching stuff online and him being like, I think that made her more anxious than not. I was trying to kind of figure out where that was coming from because I did the same thing. And I think that I was just looking for any glimmer of hope, even if it came with like 50 bad things that I read. If I could find like 2 supportive things that made me feel better, like that was helpful. Yeah, I don't know. But the treatment thing, I think that I made a lot of those decisions, but we didn't really have a chance to. They didn't really give us any options for this one because it had transformed.
Put a lot of trust in the doctors too. We ask questions even like retrospectively on, hey, why this and not this, and they had very detailed answers to everything. So at the time it was happening so fast. Like she said, we didn't necessarily have a choice, or she didn't necessarily have a choice, but all worked out.
And I know you just were talking about, you said, I stay in my lane. I think that resonates with lots of people too. I just wonder how you were able to, because of course you're feeling, you care for this woman, like you want to do something about it. So did you channel the wanting to help in a different way, outside of taking notes? How did that manifest for you?
Yeah, I mean the day-to-day stuff as much as I can. She's pretty strong-willed and independent, so I tried not to make her feel like she was babied too much. But yeah, the day-to-day stuff, we really cleaned up the food around the house, and the typical things, hygiene-wise, with ourselves and the kids both. Just really tried to stay healthy and support her to do the same.
That was rough. So he has an 11-year-old daughter and a 6-year-old son. So they were both a year younger when I got diagnosed, but I'm really close with the 11-year-old girl. We're just kind of buddies, and it was just sad. I knew that she would probably grasp a little bit because her friend's mom went through leukemia just 2 years ago. So it scared her really bad. She started crying. It was really sad. She was really scared for me. So trying to keep her knowing that like it's going to be okay, but not completely lying and saying, I just have a cold. And, so that was a teeter totter for sure. And then I would say with the younger boy, making him not feel like he's doing something wrong, just continuously like saying wash your hands or change your clothes or shower, or like kind of like I'm this bubble, like stay away from me. All of a sudden when we used to lay on the couch together, all of a sudden it was kind of like, does she not like me anymore? Like, why is she not being so lovey? And it was only a year and a half into knowing them. So like the emotional connection there was different because I couldn't be as affectionate, and I was, stressed, and to be honest, thought of them as little germ factories when they came home, and I was just scared. Like I got diagnosed and then I went into neutropenic fever. The first hospital stay was a week, and then the next time it's like lot to endure, but we're there.
Yeah, no, you've gone through a lot, and but I appreciate that you're bringing this up because there's the obvious stuff, and then there's all the other things that come with treatment that impact life day to day, and you're talking about that. It's very real. Nikki and Craig, um, what was we'll start with the kids actually first. I know that came up in the story as well in terms of how you were able to manage. Did you play different roles in how to communicate about the diagnosis?
We didn't tell them.
No,
They were too little,
the
really.
kids were probably a little bit too young, when Nikki was going through treatment. Obviously, when they got a little bit older, we had the conversation with them, and the emphasis on that was that when you hear the cancer word, it's not something to be immediately scared or frightened of. There's lots and lots of information. There's lots and lots of different types. There's lots and lots of different scenarios. So I guess it was just reassuring them that mum has a condition and it's something that we manage, and it's something that we're going to manage for the rest of her life. So that's sort of how we move forward with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think because our daughter was 5. Yeah, she was 5, wasn't she?
When you finished
when I
treatment.
finished treatment, and that whole year when I finished treatment, even though she didn't really know, because when I went away, I told her I went away for work, and she was mad at me for going away too. But yeah, she noticed how it affected my mental health. So for that whole year after I finished treatment, before I set up the Facebook group, I was miserable, and she felt that. And it wasn't until I realized how much she felt that was when I knew I had to do something about my mental health. Our youngest, he was very little. He wasn't even 1 when I was diagnosed. But when we did tell them, like Craig said, we didn't want them to be scared of the word cancer. So we decided to tell them when we were doing some fundraising for the Leukemia Foundation. So it was a lantern night. So we'd fun night, and we were saying, this is why we're fundraising, and this is why Mum has a white lantern and everyone in the family has a blue lantern, because that was for support. So we just to try to explain it in a way that wasn't scary for them.
Thank you so much. We'll try to move this. We have lots to cover. Melissa and Andrew, what were the roles that you played in treatment decision making in the doctor's office? Did you find one was speaking up more than the other, and very specific roles?
Well, Andrew stayed back. I have kind of like a mini homestead, so I have several animals to take care of. So he stayed back, thankfully, for that. And it was my mom went with me. I guess I went by myself a couple times, and then my mom went with me for the decision making. Yeah. So I was given two options for treatment. One, the clinical trial, and then the other, the rituximab and Revlimid. The doctor really kind of waited on the clinical trial for me. I mean, he kind of pushed me into it creatively.
Can you talk about that more, actually? So it was like, oh, here's 2 options, more of standard, and then this clinical trial. What did he say, and what resonated so that you decided, okay, I'll go in that direction?
Well, so I, of course, researched both. Didn't know much about the clinical trial drug. It hasn't been out very long, maybe 2 years. So there wasn't a whole lot about that, which was scary. And it seemed like my insurance would pay more for the standard treatment. So I was leaning more toward that. So he told me that he would have the pharmacist talk to me about the standard treatment, and then the clinical trial nurse talked to me about the clinical trial. I'm really glad I did it. He said he feels like that the clinical trial had less side effects, and he discussed that with me at length, and some of the side effects with the others. And so that's when I decided to do the bispecific.
Got it. And Andrew, when Melissa's talking to you about these treatment options that she's being told, did you agree? What thoughts did you have about the decision?
Well, I was a little concerned about the, I guess, the clinical trial. How much is known about it? What's the success rate? And but I think Melissa was really concerned about these side effects of the more traditional treatments. And if I remember, it was kind of like the insurance kind of dictated or would cover for her to receive these clinical trials up at Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York City. And I don't know if she would have been able to receive that here and locally, but we had some unsatisfactory experiences with some of the local healthcare facilities. So Sloan Kettering is world renowned. My only concern was, her going up to New York City by herself, or because she really couldn't be or wasn't supposed to go on public transportation or fly, so she needed somebody to take her. And fortunately, her mom stepped up and would take her up there, and I would stay behind and take care of the farm. But
Wait,
yeah.
Andrew, actually, that the fact that you're talking about that, I think, is really important, which is we're in the context of having, this conversation with one-on-one. But how important was it to have Melissa's mom? Who else was part of the regular sort of support circle, and how important was that?
Well, her mom was support. I mean, sometimes she would get stressed with her mom too, because her mom has probably had her own thoughts about things, and that's normal. And I know she would confide in some of her friends, her girlfriends, and seek support from them as well. I think that, but I think from very early on, she kind of knew that that's the route she wanted to go. So that really kind of fell into place very quickly.
I don't know, Haley, and Carl, and also Nick and Craig, for you all, were there additional major players in your support circle? And we'll start with Haley and Carl.
So definitely, I mean, really both sides of our family, but I would say the next step after Carl is my mom. She definitely has been there every step of the way. And when she wasn't, it was because she was sick. And then my dad got sick and she was in tears over not being able to be at treatment with me. She definitely made it very clear that it doesn't matter what's happening, what time of day it is. She wants to be here, be able to help me. And I mean, we're similar in ways and opposite in a lot of ways and butt heads at times, but she's really put everything to the side, the things that do kind of drive me crazy about her. God love her. I'm sorry, mom, but you're a little overbearing. But whenever she's like at the doctor and stuff, she was able to kind of turn it off and just let me do my thing. She begged to be in the room to see the doctor one time. And I remember saying, I think it was before my first treatment. And I was like, I have a lot of questions. Like, it's already a small room. We've got the doctor, the nurse coordinator, me, him. Like, there's no room for you in there. She literally came back. She asked the people at the front desk, even though I said no, and still came and knocked on the door. So I let her in and I said, basically, like, you stand in the corner and don't talk, and then I won't kick you out. But like, I have a lot of questions for the doctor. I have a lot of stuff I want to cover, and I just need you to just reel it in. And she did. She sat there like a quiet little mouse and she was really grateful to be in there. But she's been really good throughout the whole thing. And yeah.
So it sounds like you were very clear with your communication in setting boundaries.
Yeah, they needed to be set.
It's one of Haley's strong suits.
And she did a good job.
Tell us more, Carl.
Well, I'll divert and back to the original question. I think the web runs pretty wide with us. My parents were great in helping out with the kids. Things change. We try to schedule everything all the way out, and I have them 50% of the time. So, kind of got our schedule aligned with chemo, and first one got delayed, so the whole bets were off after that. So, just a lot of being fluid and a lot of flexibility. So we had help from both sides of the family, kind of all the way down the list. At some point, it seems like whether it be with the dogs or the kids or everything in between. So it was pretty great. A lot of friends reached out. She got a lot of care packages, a lot of flowers, all the things that means a lot in those times.
I know you don't realize like how much it really means. Like flowers have never meant more. Like they just show up at your door, and my whole day was better. And like, I wish that I didn't know how people could make someone feel, but now I know moving forward for not if, but when I know somebody that goes through this, like I'm almost thankful that I know how to take care of them. And I'm excited to kind of pass along what people have done for me.
Oh, that's beautiful, right? Because you've been in this position now, and now you're paying it forward with all that empathy. Um, Nikki and Craig, how about for you? What did you have additional support, and how important was it to have that?
Yeah, for sure. So we had great support on both sides of the families, and as well as that, we have an extra network of our friends that we're close with. Um, people that we sort of grew up with and sort of stayed friends with. I haven't got a large circle of friends, but the people that I am friends with are like family, and it was just really good to be able to rely on them and fall on them when I needed to.
Yeah.
Debrief, maybe forget about things for a while, whatever I needed or whatever Nikki needed, they were able to accommodate that for us, and I'll be forever grateful for that.
Yeah. We're lucky that my parents live about 200 metres down the road from where we live. So, although at the time of my diagnosis, my mum wasn't well, so she couldn't be there for me. But Craig's mum, she was just a pillar of strength, particularly for me. She lives about an hour away from us, but she was there to take me to my first treatment, and I stayed at her place because I had my treatment in Perth. And she's also she's got metastatic breast cancer. At the time, it wasn't metastasized, but she'd had her breast cancer, so she'd been through that. So we connected on that level as well. So yeah, she was probably one of our biggest supporters, as well as my parents and our close friends. Yeah, so we were very lucky because when I went away for a couple of weeks, we had family support the kids so Craig could keep working, and yeah, I was really appreciative of that.
Glad you had each other. And for Haley and Carl, Melissa, Andrew, anything resonate for you in terms of the emotions and what you found was the most challenging? Have you been able to talk about it with each other, or is it hey, let's talk to other people about it and preserve our relationship in a different way?
Yeah, there was always like kind of the outside stresses of one of the kids getting sick or something like that. For me, that caused the most tension. Going through treatments, Haley was very lucky. She definitely had some bad moments, but I think she had more good days than bad days. I would think that would be fair to say. So we still got a lot of like normal, if you will, quality time together, even through treatments. But when something would go wrong, I guess if you will, as kids getting sick or just the unforeseen challenges kind of piled on top of everything else. We got used to operating at a little bit of a higher stress level, just dealing with treatments and the whole situation. I think we were kind of already at our tipping point. So at times when something else would get introduced, it would just about put us over the edge, if not for a little bit. But we always, got to settle down and bring it back. What really helped us was being grounded and kind of centered around home. Honestly, it's one of the things that I see as a benefit and a net gain out of this.
Yeah, Carl, I
That's like
want to
so
ask.
close.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, one that it was close, but we just got a lot of quality time like in our house. All the running gets cut out, and you trim back the activities and things like that, which can be hard. But at the same time, I think it was definitely good for us and the kids.
I just a quick follow up, and then I'll ask Andrew the same question, which is, in this, there's attention always on the patient, um, but maybe a lot less so on the care partner. That was at least my experience, right? Everyone was worried about me, and then I remember telling my now husband, "Hey, what you need, you need, and make sure to take care of yourself." How did that show up for you, Carl, or did it not? I don't know.
It did in ways. When it would build up, I have some property about an hour away, so I'd kind of escape there for a few hours, and I took time when I needed it. Luckily, I didn't need a whole lot, but Haley was always understanding of it, and I think she'd kind of tell we're pretty in tune with each other. So it ended up working out okay on my end.
Thank you for sharing that. And then Andrew, for you, how did that show up? Did you take care of yourself? Did self care even was it a thought that crossed your mind?
Um, no, I was too focused on uh, making sure that Melissa was staying positive and just trying to take care of things. And yeah, I did go up to with her a couple of times for her treatments. So that was comforting for me to be able to accompany her and just kind of feel what she was going through and see how the process was. So that kind of eased my mind a lot. I really felt that she was getting really good care there. So that kind of made me feel good. And I just was, I'm a kind of person who stays busy and that
Plays
helps
music.
kind of, yeah, I have my little hobbies and things. And uh, I kind of do those things on the side that help me kind of ease my mind.
We're going to do a kind of like just with everybody, a sort of a quick fire here, but it's an important one. So if you want to, spend a little more time, that's fine. I had DLBCL, and so it's a different sort of conversation there. But regardless of what that is, you shift from being partners in one way to then this completely different dynamic of patient care partner. So things sometimes like emotional health, mental health, intimacy, the way that you look at one another in all these different ways can be impacted. I think that's very natural. So, what is the biggest sort of? I mean, it's almost like a two for one, but like the biggest way that you saw that impact the relationship, but maybe the biggest solution, I guess, too.
I think it definitely brought us closer together, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're definitely made us a lot stronger and resilient, and changed our perspective on everything. We definitely take a lot more care, just with the kids and making sure we soak up all those little moments. It just makes you realise how fragile life is.
Yeah, and for me, probably to try and put a good spin on this, sort of our lives changed dramatically, obviously with a diagnosis, but for the most part, I think our lives have changed for the better.
Absolutely.
I know we take better care of ourselves. We're more thoughtful with things. How you approach everyday things. You don't sweat the small stuff anymore because it's just not worth it.
Yeah.
Those insignificant things, they really just don't matter, because when you think about the big picture and what we're trying to achieve and the direction we're heading and where we're going, you don't have time for the small stuff anymore. It's the big stuff. So
Really
yeah, to put a good spin on it, if you can take something good out of it, that's probably what it is for us, I guess.
Yeah, I think the mental health aspect was probably the hardest for me, and he was an incredible support for me during that time, because I remember leaving the hospital and they said, "Oh, expect it to come back in 3 to 5 years, but if it comes back in 2 years, your prognosis is worse." So that held on to me, and it was actually Craig. When I realised I needed to really do something about this, I said I felt like the only thing that would help me at the time was to connect with other people with the same diagnosis, and at the time we just couldn't find anybody. So it was Craig that actually suggested, "Why don't you just start a Facebook group and let them come to you?" And that's exactly what I did, and then they did, and it was instantly like just all that, stress just melted, and I just felt like I was, I found my people. So.
Yeah.
And we'll make sure to park the link, on this discussion so people know how to find this community that you've built, which is incredible. I saw nodding going among with Melissa and Haley for some of that. We'll go to Melissa next with Andrew, and then end with Haley and Carl. So Melissa and Andrew, sort of the biggest shift for you and the biggest piece of guidance you have for others on that.
I think, finding, I think, Nikki, I'm on your Facebook group, I think, but finding people who have gone through the same thing. Also, I'll just have to do a plug for Colorado State University. I joined another research where they did exercise afterwards, and that changed my life. It really changed my life in the fact that now I'm, lead a group of exercise online afterwards, and we kind of still stay together. It's a national group that we do. So that's awesome too. But as far as us relationally, I think, it's evolved, and I feel like we're in the relationship. We're very in the infantile stages, and we learned about each other and what our strengths are and what each other give. So that was a good thing. Yeah.
Andrew, anything to add there?
I agree. I think it was the diagnosis and going through the experience of treatment really, made our relationship evolve, and we became a lot more mature, emotionally mature as a couple. And it's still a growing process, I think, because you still have to maintain your care and your treatment, but I think we're in a much stronger place than we were when we first got the diagnosis, I think.
Thank you so much. And then Haley and Carl, I know, again, this happened and not too far into your relationship, and it was a lot to go through. What guidance do you have for other people?
I mean, I feel like it did kind of push issues that we maybe hadn't even been across yet because it was only a year and a half into our relationship. So we had to learn a lot about each other's, how we deal with things. I had never seen him be emotional. I am not an emotional person. And then all of a sudden, we're both just kind of a wreck for a while. And just kind of let all of our walls down at one time, where I feel like maybe it would have taken 10 years normally to go through what we went through in 90 days, it seems like. So I feel like it escalated our communication and just kind of understanding for each other a lot quicker than it normally would have in a relationship. But I do think that there is some positives that have come of it just in life in general. I feel like I can appreciate life more. It just makes like the meaning of everything is just a lot different. And I feel like people don't realize that they treat life as a disposable item, but they really do. And now I just feel like just looking outside at like the green grass, I'm not even kidding. It just like seems different than it did last year. You're just more appreciative. Like, I can't wait to go sit on the beach. And I told him, I'm like, I'm probably just going to start crying sitting on the beach this year just because I'm so like grateful to be here. Whenever you think about the alternative that goes through cancer patients' brains, it's also just really new for me. So I'm just really excited to be on the other side right now. I know that follicular will come back, and I'm ready for that. I've come to terms with that. I'm okay with it being something like a condition, like you guys said, that's going to come back, but there's so many treatments for it. And I feel like it's moving at such a fast rate that I'm not near as scared of follicular as I was at the beginning.
Yeah, I would say quality time was huge for us in terms of what helped us. Within that is obviously talking a lot, whether it be about cancer or not. I did try to make a point, while we were just hanging out on the couch or in bed or whatever, to get away from cancer talk sometimes. We're both pretty goal oriented. So talking short-term goals, long-term goals. I don't know, maybe just reminding ourselves that there's another side to this, which we're just starting to see now. So I'm not sure if it worked long term or not, but in the short term, I think that definitely helped us.
Yeah, thank you all. That's really insightful. And I appreciate also because you're all sort of different points in this experience. So I think this discussion is going to help so many people out there who are experiencing so many different like kinds of situations. Thank you all for joining. I know we went way longer than we had expected to, but it was so great to hear in depth your perspective. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck, everyone.
Yeah, good luck.
And also, thanks to you at home for joining this discussion. We want to keep the conversation going. We want to continue with these insights and shared experiences. And so, a survey is coming up after this program is officially over. We want to hear from each of you what you enjoyed, what we can do better, and what you're looking for with these educational programs and the patient stories. And it shouldn't take more than a few minutes to fill out. Thank you again to our sponsor, GenMab, for its support of our independent patient program, allowing us to be able to post more of these for you. The patient story always retains full editorial control. And we want to point out, again, some of our incredible resources from our friends at the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, and also the Living with Follicular Lymphoma Facebook group. You can see the links alongside in our program here. The LLS has a community section for people to meet and chat with other blood cancer patients and care partners. It also has free personal guidance through information research specialists. And the Living with FL Facebook group features an ongoing lively chat real time with thousands of people from across the globe. It is the biggest FL dedicated Facebook group that there is. So, again, hope that this was helpful for you as you walk away today. Thank you so much for coming. And we really hope to see you at another program soon, or maybe that you're going to share your story. For now, I'm Stephanie Trong with The Patient Story. Thank you and take good care.